Welcome, everybody. I guess to kick us off, I just want to share a little bit about the Pippins and Charlie. This conversation really is so much more than an exhibit. Of course, we have the beautiful artwork here that brings so much color into our lives and so much depth and richness into our lives. It's also about us, about the humanity of life that I believe we can all get from Charlie's work. And so my hope today with our panelists, who I will introduce in just a few minutes, my hope today is to dive deep into a very important conversation, a very necessary conversation about the power of art, about the power of healing, about the power of connection amongst us. So I'll just introduce the panelists briefly. We have Brigitte Norton, who is a French-born artist and also my favorite title, Charlie's mom. We have Dr. Hershberger, who is a psychiatrist and the chair of psychiatry at One Brooklyn Health. And we have Janette Agbetor, who is a New York State licensed creative art therapist, also at One Brooklyn Health. One Brooklyn Health. And we have Jeremiah Cedeno, who is the program manager of policy and strategy at Vibrant Emotional Health, also known as the 988 Lifeline. Are we ready?
Yes.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we're ready.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's dive right in with one of our questions. So the Pippins series is such a beautiful series, a beautiful part of the story regarding mental health. And so I want to ask each of you, or whoever wants to answer, what does Charlie's art teach us about the inner world of someone navigating deep struggles?
I guess I can kick it off. So as an art therapist, when we approach an art product, we approach it first through formal elements of art. So we're looking at line and color and implied energy and the content. And then we also take into account our personal life experiences, and where we're connecting with emotionally, sensorially. Where does our eye drawn to? And so when I approach Charlie's work, the first thing that I see is the real intensity of the lines, the real vibrancy of color. There's wit, there's whimsy, there's such energy. I think about the amount of time that he must have put in to create these works, the way the colors blend. I think about the colored pencil and how that offers so much control. And then I think, okay, well, what could that be telling me about someone's inner world? Is someone looking to find control in the midst of chaos or in the midst of overwhelm? I don't know, Dr. Hershberger, do you want to punch you?
Sure. Well, it's strange to be a psychiatrist on a stage at the Art Students League. It seems like I'm in somebody else's world right now. But in a way, I get drawn into this because, of course, Charlie's story and the Norton story resonates with me personally and my family. I certainly understand both the trauma and toll of mental illness, and so I was more than honored to be part of this. I think about what I do for a living. I spend a lot of time in secret places, in small rooms, having very private conversations that never really see the light of day. And what Charlie's work does for me is help that conversation become more public, something that everyone can talk about, where it's not secluded or secret. And so that what it does for me is it begins a conversation, from what does it mean to have the hats that are smooth and shiny? What does it mean to have the hats that are all twisted? What does that mean about the minds of the people that are depicted? What is it? What are these? All the images have the same kind of motif to them. With the, happy forward, bird in the back, the foot forward, foot in the back. There's this tension in it, where I think a person could see a lot of pieces of themselves, their own conflicts in the art. And it's a way of starting a conversation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I can say that Charlie found peace whenever he was. Sorry.
Okay.
Whenever he was drawing, he would spend hours, and I could feel him alive when he was making everything. And then he would fall down after many hours of work. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to do that.
It's okay.
But part of this is, as I shared with you, it's about sharing the story. And even this idea of feeling alive and sometimes having those downtimes, we see that in this work, the duality of being human. We can all resonate with these characters.
The obsession he had when he started One Piece, and he would never give up until it was finished. And he would use a special cloth so it would be perfect, that there would be no smear, nothing. So that's why it looks so good when it's enlarged. Otherwise,
You can see the control.
yeah.
Like it's,
Yeah.
And there's something about the fact that it's a figure, it's a character, it reflects humanity, it reflects parts of ourselves. It draws you in, you want to come closer, which I think again is about connecting to a deeper part of ourselves. It's an inner, it's an expression of our inner world through that image.
Yeah, I think when I look at the different characters, what also stands out for me from the perspective of the lifeline is that internal dialogue made visible, right? Because like we all have had to wear masks at a certain point where we go to different settings, right? And we have to put on a smile or put on a different personality that's not the reality of how we're feeling internally. And so just to see like the one constant in all the different figures is the thumbs up and the middle finger. And so just seeing that puts it makes it more visible, that internal dialogue that I think was referred to earlier, but yeah.
Absolutely.
And we had actually used this art, this amazing art, in a group setting on our inpatient psych unit to open and spark a conversation. And we didn't give too much content. We really wanted the images to resonate. And so what we found is that it was sort of either received or rejected. Just like parts of ourselves we amplify or we receive, or parts of ourselves we kind of suppress. And I think there was also, it was met with a lot of humor and laughter. I think having that art image broke down barriers to speak to things that people are going through. Like one thing that was rejected was sort of the heavy set belly and the joint, and this one particular patient was like, no, I don't like this, that's not me. However, that was part of his story that brought him to the hospital. So it was actually a way to enter, to talk quicker, to talk faster about the things that are underneath the surface. And the art really, really helped bring that forward faster, that we could explore it in a conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think mental illness is everywhere. It's everywhere. It's in every group. It's in every family. The joke I always tell is, if there's no one in your family with mental illness, it's you.
That's true.
And so the mental illness can grow where in these sort of invisible spaces. One of those spaces is between what you feel and what you can express. There's lots that people can feel, but they don't know how to put into words. And art is a way to get at that. There's a nonverbal avenue of communication that can spark a conversation. Even in Janette's work, we're dealing with really sick people who need an inpatient hospital at that part of their life. It's a way of connecting to them when they are often the hardest to connect with.
So this brings us to, this conversation really brings us to another really important question. What are the most effective ways to reach people who are struggling, especially those who, on the outside might appear high functioning, like they got everything well put together. What are the most effective ways that we can reach folks who are struggling, since many of us are?
This is a very complicated question. If we had a solution, but I think the Pippins, when you look at them, you can really ask the question, what is okay, what's not okay? And actually, when we did the exhibition, some of you came to the art gallery we did at one point, and we had this little room with Charlie's hand, thumbs up and middle finger on the other side, that was hidden in the corner. And we had crayons, and we had what's okay, what's not okay. Everybody was in hiding, writing in all languages, all religion, all anything. They could write what they thought about it make them feel, looking at, like you say, the weed Pippin, this person who is suffering didn't like it because it was too close to home. So it's a way of being able to express. It could be like they used to do little drawings or writing. Even children wrote. I remember Arslan's kid did write something at the bottom.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So finding ways to express yourself.
Yes.
Is one way to reach.
Yeah, I think there's power in narrative. There's power in storytelling. I think it's important to create, make music, make art, sing, dance, express yourself. I think we often feel very much in society that we have to carry a burden alone, or our experiences are unique to us, and we don't maybe have a community, or we don't have a place where we can find purpose or focus. And so I think through making art, connecting to nature, being expressive, this is where we start to build connections, and we feel connected to humanity itself.
I would also add to that it's also a way to reach someone that is struggling is to listen. Right? One of the things that we tell people that we tell our staff on the Lifeline is listen. Don't be so quick to be prescriptive. Don't be so quick to go through the plan. 9 times out of 10, folks that are reaching out to the Lifeline are folks that are just looking to be heard. They're looking to be seen, right? They don't feel seen or heard within their families, within their circle, and so they're looking just for someone to hear them. And for the most part, when folks do call the Lifeline and they express what they're feeling, after a while, after them just venting, they're like, you know what? I feel better. I just needed to get that off of my chest, right? And so I think once we encourage people to do the storytelling, to tap into the narratives, to create this type of art, to tap into whatever passion that they're passionate about, is also being able to take a step back once they've done that and listen to what message they're trying to convey, rather than just quickly jumping in, I think is something that has been a tool that we use on the Lifeline.
Part of being a witness, or I am here with you.
It's a great word.
You're alone.
It's a great word.
I think we've made a lot of progress in dealing with stigma. Like, I'm not sure this panel would have happened 25 years ago, but it is happening now, and so that's progress. But there's still a ways to go. I mean, I think that we still carry a lot of shame and fear around mental illness. Like, it's much more comfortable for a person to talk about, I broke my leg, than to say I had a psychotic episode or I had a bout of depression. It's just, we're not quite at that world where that's an easy conversation to have one-on-one. So to me, I think that's the power of the Pippins in a way. It's like, it's hard to talk, you and me, or one of us, about like what's going on in our minds or what we've been through. It's challenging, but if the Pippins kind of introduced like a third character. Like you can say, well, let's talk about what that Pippin is feeling. Or let's talk about what that Pippin is feeling. Like, are they bemused? Are they angry? Are they depressed? Are they, how are they feeling? But in the conversation about these figures, we're really talking about us. We're really talking about what's inside that we, I guess, or to say express, but we psychiatrists say project, like we project onto it. And it's a way of obliquely talking about our issues as we get better at speaking openly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're talking about guilt also, and I think it's the guilt is also for all the people that are around the person who is not well, because we are one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When we talk about suicide prevention, and when my team at Elmhurst teaches about suicide prevention to communities, we actually say suicide is preventable, but it's not 100% preventable because the guilt left behind, right?
Yeah.
Families do everything that they can to help express, to tap into this creativity that you're talking about, to provide opportunities for healing, and sometimes it's really hard, So I think it's also why we're here. We're talking about destigmatizing the conversation. This exhibit is called Destigmatizing the Mental Health Conversation. And so I think that's where Charlie's power is.
If we can help the people who are suffering, I think we should also help the people who are taking care of the people. I think, that's what I wanted to say. We are one.
Yeah.
If everyone would know how to help themselves to be able to help others, because you are faced with irrationality sometime in someone that you love so much, but you don't recognize. Things that the person can say, you are powerless. You don't know how to help.
Absolutely.
So that's the stigma also for the people who
and that's
take care.
worse if you do it by yourself.
Yes.
Like that's a terrible burden for a person, a family, a community. But in isolation, it's harder. It's harder. So making sure that people and their caregivers and their loved ones can talk.
Right, because they get sick also.
Of course.
Yes. So Brigitte, that comment actually brings us to, it's a wonderful segue to our next question. We are one, and we are all struggling in this. It's not only the person at the center of it. And, I want to ask the panel, in your experiences, what are the systemic and the cultural barriers to getting help, to finding help?
If I may, I'd love to take this opportunity to talk about, if we're going to, from the 9 at 8 perspective, one of the biggest barriers is that to the doctor's point, we live in a society where mental health has advanced, but the conversation has not gone to where it could be. And so much so that in the political structure of the country that we live in, mental health continually is defunded, right? From the perspective of the 9 at 8 program where I'm at, we're constantly seeing how changes in the current administration is leading to drawbacks in what services we are able to provide, right? And this is not a conversation about the political parties that you choose to vote for. This is just the reality of, from the perspective of the mental health structure as we are currently sitting in. The reality is we just had the LGBTQ line that was completely removed, the service that helped 5 million people across this country. Right? And it was unceremoniously removed. And not just specifically the LGBTQ community, LGBTQ youth. And so we're talking about a society, a barrier, where the powers that be, if you will, do not have the same priority and emphasis on mental health like those of us that are here, right? You're all here because you care about the conversation. And so I would say, from the perspective of 9 at 8, the main barrier that we face on a structural level is how mental health is not even viewed as a priority. We still here in many spaces just pray it away, or
sure. And so maybe part of the work is having conversations like this in our spaces. Absolutely. And what about for the rest of the panelists, and any systemic cultural barriers you might see present?
Yeah, it sounds like the stigma affects even our culture, right? Like thinking on my walk here, I saw buses go by, and there'd be advertisements for wonderful hospitals that are doing wonderful procedures like heart transplants at Mount Sinai. It sounds wonderful. It has the halo effect of great care. But you'll not see a bus go by with a side of it advertising inpatient psychiatry or mental health services, or treatment for substance use disorders. Like, it's just not, it's one of those things where we culturally repress it. Like, we all have it. Everyone in this room knows somebody who's struggling, or is someone who's struggling. And even though that's true, we back burner it in terms of time, attention, resources, acceptability. It is, they all roll back to societies have to make priorities, and we make a priority about behavioral health issues through a wall of shame and fear and suppression.
And I think we put the burden on the individual a lot. That if the individual just stops, puts down the drink, or if the individual just goes, seeks help, but it's so much more complex. And how are they held? What brought them to that moment that you're meeting them? And then can you meet them on a cultural level? Do we have enough representation of our practitioners? I mean, there's so many barriers that you think about. What maybe generational traumas are we acknowledging or seeing that? There are so many breakdowns in our systems. Where even when we have someone coming to the hospital again and again, what is the change of plan that we do this second or third time around to feel like they can make it on their own if they don't have a support system or structure present for them? And it is hard to sit with that.
I think that there's also hopelessness. I think that we often think about mental health from tragedy. We think about bad things that happened, and that's when it gets negative attention. But there are fantastic treatments. There are really wonderful treatments. There are paths to recovery that have sustained so many people and gotten them back to a higher level of function, work, ability to love. It's really there's a lot of hope. But the problem is, even when people achieve that, they don't say, "Oh, I just got better." They don't run around and telling everyone about how they achieved something and they fixed their health, their mental health, because of the shame involved in having an issue in the first place.
Well, the problem also is that the person who is not well doesn't want to talk about it and refuse sometimes to get help, and that gives a bad look on you.
I know. Charlie pointed that out. Yeah. There's two psychiatrist paintings in here, and I don't come across very good.
Yeah. So, it's very hard for the person who suffers to admit that there is something wrong, and to take medication very often. I mean, I know Charlie didn't want to take medication because of the side effect, and finding a dose that was good for him, he never really reached that goal. So we talked about that earlier. It's very difficult.
Yeah, I also want to add to that point. It's one of the things that we also see. I mentioned the cut to the LGBTQ line, but one of the things also is we're told to promote the service so that people can come to it. But while we're being told to promote it, we're also getting cut $1 million from our marketing budget, right? And so it's like that saying, "Build it and they will come." But I'm like, I lived in the Bronx. I lived in the Bronx, and I worked for an agency, a government agency that had a clinic 2 blocks from where I lived, but I never knew that existed because it was never promoted to me. I never knew that existed. And so, how much of it is also these resources that are available, but there's an intentional effort to not promote it, so that our people do not come to these resources and know that these resources. I'm Latino, and I can tell you that one of the things I see also is stigma, not only from our culture and how we view mental health, but also translating stuff from English to Spanish so that our culture can access the mental health information, right? When we're constantly being told that we're in a country that only speaks English, and that we need to learn English because that's not the main language. And so that disconnect between how we can get the message to our communities when it comes to mental health also plays a role, like to your point, about how folks are struggling and folks don't know how to talk about it because the message isn't getting to them as well.
Yeah, because the people that you are have already been on a certain level. If they take their phone and call you,
Absolutely.
and you can listen, but a lot of them don't want to. They are afraid. They are ashamed. They feel guilt themselves. They feel they don't belong to the society. They feel the gap. They are not. They cannot perform. And so, thank God for art and writing and all those things where it's an escape for them.
That's right.
And that's why the Pippins are really témoignage. I don't know, you say in English, they are témoignage?
Any French speakers?
Not témoignage.
I didn't do my Duolingo today, I'm sorry.
They are witness to a way of hope and an exhaust. And that's why we need to
Yes.
encourage.
What a beautiful way to express that.
Looking at the work, to me, one of the things that comes across to me is isolation, because it's all these figures kind of suspended in a blank field, without a ground, without whatever. Even mental illness can do that to you, where you can have all the resources, all the love, all the family, all the support in the world, but not see it, not be able to connect with it, but work it through in this way. So I imagine our patients on the inpatient unit might connect to that piece of it, where it's a figure floating in a sea of white.
Yeah. And they're weighted. And if they were to get up, their contorted legs, would they fall? Is there enough stability to stand on? That sort of instability, but also because it's all the color and the line quality is in the person. So it's almost this internal. While again, that environment is blank. So is that something? And this is where our creative minds can come. And how do we hold the Pippins? What are they saying to us? What would we add in the background? I mean, there's so much that this can inspire. There's so much that it can reflect in our internal processes. And there's so much spoken in the nonverbal. I think, and then you do have the verbal with the poetry, which is another amazing additional element, because that links a little bit more to the cognition and the thought. But if we were again just to sit with the art, so much can be shared, and then the beauty of like someone else could then being inspired by this. Is really powerful. So there is hope there. There is hope there.
Absolutely. So what I'm hearing is access to resources and stability and maintaining these resources. I'm also hearing the decrease of stigma, being able to have these conversations so that people can ask for help and are less ashamed to admit that they might need help. And I'm also hearing the need for support, for belonging, for oneness. Since we are all one. So this leads me to our next question. I want to ask each of you to consider the Pippins as a visual icon, signaling a safe, stigma-free zone where open conversations can happen. What can this look like in your view, in your world? And specifically, how can the Pippins imagery and poetry deepen our conversations about mental illness and mental health in any setting?
Well, I know at One Broken Health, we've been using it as a therapeutic thing. See if we can use it kind of like, people used to use Rorschach tests, where you give like an blood test, and then what do you see, and then use that projection as the basis of a conversation. And so I think we've been trying to use the Pippins as a way of in the same vein. How's it gone?
I think it was received and rejected. I think it opened great discussions. I think that, I think there's so many ways you could go with looking at internal process and what's your external world. I think the fact that you're making in a group, I think is also so important. So again, you're not feeling alone when you're inspired by this. I think I also think about when you shared how the Pippins were displayed at Hudson Yard, and they were so big, and people would go under them, or they would, high five, or they would repeat the symbols, right? I think there's something that it's talking with the body language, it's talking with the colors and the shapes. So I think there's so much rich content here for people to see parts of themselves in this, and to open the discussion, to see the out of control and the explosive, fingers and heads, and then also, to find grounding, to come back and sit with everything.
So we're hoping that we could get enough clinical traction that we could use this, to decorate our space, to guide people to our space. It's a common truth in psychiatry departments is that we hide them. We hide them away. We put them at the deepest basement or the top floor. It's very difficult to find, and it could be a way that we draw people to us to say this is a place that we can talk about tension. It's whimsical. It's not frightening. There's a conversation that can happen that's not threatening but deeply meaningful.
Right.
And so I think that's how we want it to develop in our world.
I know that Charlie, when he was in London, admitted in a hospital for a few weeks, he was drawing the Pippins, and he drew the drunken, one of the patients, and Tony, who arrived exactly like this with the bare feet. The drunken was dreaming of having enough money to go into a rehab center so he could stop drinking. And Charlie drew him, and with so much humor that he used it. One day he came, and he had actually gotten the money, and he was so happy, so victorious, that he used on his Instagram Charlie's Pippin, and just to also say that Charlie would put all the Pippins after that everywhere he could. He made stickers, he would stick them everywhere, thinking that it would help other people with the humor and to create this connection among each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't help but notice your scarf, Brigitte, right?
Yes.
And
I'm wearing the Pippins all the time.
Exactly. And what would it be like for us to be able to maybe wear the Pippins, or like a pin, or to see images, to feel that connection with others and to recognize the humanity?
Yes.
I think of also, we have, so at Vibrant, we also, apart from the operating of the 90-day Lifeline, we also have adolescent skill centers and family youth centers all throughout the city. And in those centers, we have youth that are 16 to 22 that come in that are also getting mental health services at these facilities. And I'm thinking about like how we could incorporate as well more art-related things into those spaces, because this has served as a good reminder for me about like the power. Like, I love music, and a lot of our students also love music, and so we're always engaging on conversations around lyrics to songs and how they resonate with lyrics in particular songs, but also the imagery of the Pippins is something that I know I'm going to be taking back to our space, to be like, hey, we got to incorporate more of this there. So, yeah.
So I wanted to ask the panelists if you all had anything specific you wanted to share regarding this exhibit, your time here, any messages for our audience.
I mean, for me, for us as a family, we want to share Charlie's talent first, and in his memory, that because he wanted them to be exhibited all over, everywhere, as a momentum of mental illness, of what he was feeling, and so that's why we are doing it, and we want to share with everyone, because I think they are so wonderful. We all are Pippins. anyway, and you are a great example in your blue suit. And we need color in our life. And that's what the title of Dilemma of Colors is also very catching. Inside, sometimes we are very gray, and but we need to make an effort to sparkle for others too.
Well, thank you for having us, and thank you for supporting this wonderful event. I guess my thoughts, I'm still drawn to the psychiatrist portrait over there. I never actually met Charlie Norton, but I feel like I have through this work. And when I see the one painting or drawing
You have a mustache.
Yeah, I know, exactly. I didn't even know. And the one where he's actually got the bird up front, right?
Yeah, he's sitting just...
And I've just been reflecting about how many of my patients feel that way about me today. And like, so I had an emotional connection to today. So thank you for
He
having
would
me.
have loved you and debate with you. He would have...
I'll keep the mustache.
Again, I just thank you for the ability to be part of this conversation. I also echo the sentiment that I feel in some ways through these images that I know Charlie better, or just know of him. And, I guess for me, I'm just left with what the passion that I was drawn to art therapy for, and how someone to have the ability to share their story or their narrative through art making. I believe in that. It helps us problem solve. It helps us look at our deepest and darkest feelings. It helps us rearrange. It helps us change our thoughts. It helps us see more of our picture, and it helps us connect with others. And so, again, I'm so grateful to just be part of this dialogue that's breaking stigma. So thank you.
Yeah, I would say for me, like what I mentioned at the top, right? I think I never got to meet Charlie as well. However, I feel like I identify with Charlie. And I know people that identify with Charlie in the sense that, we all, at some point throughout our lives, right, have had to show up in spaces and put on a front of who we are. Like, oh, so happy to be here, so good, so good. But with all the internal things that we've got going on in our lives, we have to suppress that. And because of that, if those cracks start to show, we become imperfect, or the best representation of ourselves is not present. And so I think about, right, like how many Charlies are in my life, right? How many people do I engage with, not just on a professional level, but on a personal level and on a self level of, showing up in spaces as one thing, but not taking the time to see what's going on underneath the surface. And so it's a good reminder for me, right? And to with the people in my life, to dig a little deeper and like, are you good? How's everything? Things like that. And also to be more authentic and more transparent with my own internal dialogue. I think that's something that comes up for me. And again, lastly, I see it all in the people that call the lifeline, right? Now, it's a good reminder for everyone who's calling the lifeline. As I mentioned, folks just want to be heard. And so I think about that Charlie example, if you will, of like, how they're coming and into the space, but also what they're carrying internally and the work that it takes to get to that part. So, yeah, thank you for having me.
And I wanted to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to be here to join in the conversation. And most definitely, I wanted to thank you, Brigitte, for sharing the story, for sharing Charlie with us. You used the word before, to witness, which sounds so much better in French. You want to say it again in French?
Yeah.
Témoignage.
And there is power in being able to witness Charlie through this, and being able to share in the oneness that I think is important for us to share into.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.